it's Kristen here, and I've got some mindset tips as we are growing into resilient, joyful humans. I've been thinking about how hard we can be on ourselves as we're working to grow into joy and into resilience and develop practices that support that. How hard we can really be on ourselves during that time of growth. And I've been thinking a lot about how everything is a practice. Every skill that we develop is a practice, and mindfulness and compassion and kindness, they're no different. No different than developing the skill of writing or speaking or meditation. Everything is a practice. We arrive into this world and are immediately imprinted on. Our community, our parents, everyone around us, imprinting, joy, judgment, resilience, fear, all of it. And we grow into adulthood with this imprinting, and then we spend much of our adulthood reworking the imprint. And some of us have more resources, maybe if we grew up in an environment with more joy and more resilience. Maybe it's easier for us to develop practices of more joy and more resilience, and to work through the judgment and fear. And for those of us who were imprinted with more judgment and fear, it can be more difficult to develop the practices. But either way, most of us have some middle ground there where we have some sort of a balance of judgment, fear, joy, resilience, and all the other gamut of human experience and imprinting on us. The point is that anyone can rework the imprint that has been put on them. As you go through your adult life, it's like learning a language. And language is a practice. We can all learn a language. Pretty much any language, all of us have the technical capability to learn it. It's just that it may be more difficult for some of us than it is for others. Again, if you have that imprinting of judgment and fear, it may feel like the language of joy and resilience is harder to learn because it's not as recognizable. The characters feel foreign. There's no map to understand it. And for those of us who have experienced more joy and resilience, then building and growing that might be an easier practice because we knew people in our lives who spoke that language of joy and resilience and goodness and fun and all the other gamut of things that we can experience and work into our lives. But either way, it's like a language. And it's a practice, and we all can learn it. So I wanted to give a few tips of things that have helped me as I have developed my own practice. First off, mindfulness. That is a practice. Mindfulness is not something that comes innately to us in our human experience. And it takes practice to develop that sense of mindfulness. And so we can start with little things like being aware of our thoughts when we walk through a doorway, creating a marker, right? Every time that we get into the car, we become mindful. We decide that, we make that decision, and we develop a marker for that pinpoint. We walk through a doorway, we become mindful about our thoughts. Do these thoughts serve us? What's going on? What am I feeling right now? And becoming mindful is the baseline for for all practice and for all growth. We can't grow if we are not aware of what's going on internally. The other thing is kindness and compassion towards ourselves. Again, this is a practice. There can be a temptation to punish ourselves when we're trying to change a practice that isn't positive and doesn't serve us, like judgment or fear. It can be really tempting to see that and to punish ourselves for continuing that negative practice that isn't serving us. And maybe we've gotten some short-term results from that, right? Like, we have changed how we act when we punish ourselves. But what we find is that when we punish ourselves, overall, long-term, it creates a sense of defeat and exhaustion, and then we just give up. Whereas, if we can be kind and compassionate to ourselves as we develop a practice of mindfulness and growth, then we will have long-term results. And so what does kindness and compassion look like when we're trying to grow and when we're trying to change thoughts and actions that don't serve us? So instead of seeing in your mindfulness a pattern of judgment or fear and then judging that judgment and punishing ourselves, what we can do instead is that we can witness it. We can witness the thought or action that doesn't serve us. We can acknowledge it. We can forgive ourselves. And then we can choose differently. And in that sense, we're holding ourselves accountable, which sometimes punishment can feel like holding ourselves accountable, but really, again, it just creates exhaustion and defeat. So instead, we can witness it, acknowledge it, forgive ourselves for that pattern, and choose differently, and then move on. Another tip is to develop a meditation practice. And I have heard from so many people who have said, meditation just isn't for me. I can't do it. I can't quiet my mind. And meditation is the 101 for all things compassion, mindfulness, patience, joy, and gratitude. I am here to say I do not have a lengthy and exhaustive meditation practice. Many people do, and that's awesome. And maybe someday I will. But it can be as simple as 60 seconds at the beginning or end or both parts of your day. You can start there. Again, it is a practice, and so it's going to take time to sit with yourself quietly and just pay attention. And what you'll find is it gets easier and easier, and you may find yourself wanting to grow that into 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I personally am not a shaman sitting on top of a mountain meditating for half an hour, but I think it's great, and I may get there. But for right now, what works for me is just beginning my day with 5 or 10 minutes of meditation through an app. And there's many different apps that have free meditations, all different time lengths and all different styles. But it is paramount in developing those practices and skills and the language of mindfulness, compassion, patience, and gratitude and joy. So I can't say enough about that. And then lastly, it's just about listening and paying attention and allowing. There's room for all of our feelings. And we can be open, and we can show up, and we can do good, right? And when we pay attention and we allow, and we give space and room for the gamut of our emotional experience, then we can grow. Then it begins that cycle of mindfulness again. Because it isn't until we can see what's going on and we can actually look with courage at our internal landscape that then we can change the patterns that don't serve us. And we can see ourselves in a pattern and again witness and acknowledge and forgive and choose differently. And that's our lives. And we are open and we show up and we do good. And I think that that is the pinnacle of what we can hope for in the human experience, is to be open, show up, and do good for ourselves through our practice and for those around us. So that's it. Those are my tips on developing a practice and growing in resilience and joy and fun and all the ways that you might want to experience life, and working to rework those imprints of fear and judgment so that we can have the best human experience possible. Thanks for joining me.